Good afternoon and welcome to Men's Radio. I'm Neil Long and it's good to be here. And welcome. Russ isn't here today, so I'm flying solo today. We'll just do a few hellos, then we'll invite our guest in and have a good old chat. So let's be avenue with your comments. I would love to see you. Who have we got tuned in, I wonder, today? Are you ready for Christmas yet? I spent the afternoon yesterday on sleigh, which was quite interesting. 3 hours driving around. So wasn't driving, but I was on the back of the sleigh playing music, as I like to do, which was great fun. And it was a fantastic local charity event. So hello to you if you're involved in that. And big up Roy and Laura Bigmore, who are absolutely the driving forces behind that. I'm really tired. Anyone else feel a bit tidy and a bit burnt outy? Because I'm starting to feel that I had a bit of a burnout before and just starting to get that little vibe again. So it's like, okay, extra self-care. Just I slept 9 hours last night. I just got into bed and thought, nothing to do apart from go to bed. So I did, and I've got this ridiculous to-do list and I just can't be bothered to do it. It's beginning to feel a lot like burnout. So time to calm things down a lot. But I would like to talk to a friend of mine now and invite him on. His name's Craig Marriott, and I'll let him introduce himself. Was the sleigh ULEZ compliant? Yeah, funny guy. Probably not, but we don't care. Paul Claridge, good afternoon, everyone, and RVB, and I hope you're feeling better too. Hello to you. Craig Marriott, hello.
Hello there.
You are live, sir.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
You're very intermittent. Thank you very much. You're very intermittent to me sound-wise, so I'm fine.
Yeah, we sometimes have this most ridiculous delay, so it sounds like we're talking over each other, but we're not. And I try and be mindful of it and do a bit of timing to make sure that we don't talk over each other. Can you hear me okay now?
Okay.
Well, that is some delay.
I understand that.
Can you hear me okay now?
You go blank.
Oh my goodness me, you're very intermittent. Can you hear me okay now?
I can right this second, yes.
Great. Okay. Well, let's plow through and see what we can do. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Quite the delay. So let's if you'd like to introduce yourself and really how we got to know each other, because it all sort of happened over lockdown, didn't it? And you've been on before actually, but I thought it'd be nice to have another chat with you today.
Sorry, Neil, I didn't get any of that.
No problem at all. You've been on the show before, and I wanted to invite you on again. Really, just because you were a great guest last time, but really, just if you introduce yourself to people and how we got to know each other.
Yep. So my name's Craig Marriott. I got to know Neil through when we started up a channel to Sutton. And Sutton was back in 2018. Very sadly, I life, and I had to do something to give back to the public, as it were. And I got together with two very nice ladies who had some life experiences as well, and we started Just Talk.
And Craig, sorry, if you hear me, can you go back to the beginning of the last sentence? We missed that little bit. All right. I'm so sorry about this technology.
Okay. Yep. So beginning of last sentence. So 2018. As I say, we started Just Talk, got together with two ladies who'd got life experiences, and we started Just Talk. Neil was very supportive to us. We met, and we did podcast. If you remember, Neil, you came around and we did a podcast for a book, I believe.
Yes, we did.
So Just Talk was ongoing from that. Is that right? Just Talk was ongoing from that point of view, and we started face-to-face sessions, judgmental, and confidential. We were listeners, we were not listeners, but we met in a very nice community hall in the High Street of Sutton. Sadly, we've had to close down this last week, and the other
How come?
trustees did not want to continue without me. Very sad, but it became a fact of life. Well, it was Sussex, which is very nice for me and my family. But the other two ladies who are, full-time work and didn't want to continue without me going up to Sutton all the time. So, so we've sadly had to close Just Talk down, which is sad because there isn't anything quite like Just Talk where you can go along and discuss anything you want to. Yes, there
So
are
what
lots
made
of
it
different
different to other?
avenues to look at specific problems, but not
What made it different, in your view, to other counselling services?
any sort of really make a difference as to what the issue was. They could come along and discuss it. And this was the fact. It didn't matter what they said. They could talk about many problems if they had them, or just one specific problem. But it didn't matter to us what they wanted to discuss.
And did you seek to find resolutions for the problems, or just listen, or how did it work?
Well, it was listening to begin with, and people used to comment to us about the fact that they felt comfortable with us simply because they, and they noticed that we hadn't spoken maybe for quite a while. But the emphasis on listening to them to discuss more about what their issue is, and then we asked them how they feel about it, and we asked them, what would they like to see happen? What would they like to do about it? So very often people had the answers to their own problems. They just couldn't see the wood for the trees. So we had some resolutions, but we weren't there necessarily
really
to
interesting.
resolve their problems.
This is really interesting. I'm so sorry about the connection because it's a fascinating conversation. They do say people with the NLP community, psychological community, that people have all the answers, and in other fields as well, that we have all the answers to life's questions within ourselves. They're all there, all the solutions, anything we could possibly need. We kind of, in a very real way, already have it. But where we get tripped up is when we're in the middle of a problem, it's really hard to see the forest for the trees. Really, really hard. And I've experienced it myself. So just having someone that can listen in a and that's key, non-judgmental way, it gives people more clarity, I think, to be able to find the solutions themselves and do what they need to do, right?
Certainly, Neil, you're quite right there. I think people might come along in the first instance and expect answers to some of their problems. But once we unravel and we start to get them talking about their problems, it becomes a different sort of very rewarding. We found it, quite emotional in some cases because people have got a lot of problems tucked away in the back of their mind, and they just need to get it out. A welfare side of looking after ourselves, should we need it, which is very good as well. But it is interesting to know that people can come along, and sometimes it would break along to discussing other issues that they'd got problems with as well.
What was the most common thing, if you had to put them in categories? I mean, I don't want specifics because it's obviously confidential, but what was the most common thing? I mean, they say there's only three kinds of problems: health, financial, and relationship. Do they all fall into that category pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's fair to say that we had quite an array of issues that people came along with, and some of them would seem quite dramatic to people. They really would feel closer to the end of the line than one might think, um, and that's what we latch on to. We've said, look, you've come here, you've discussed things, well done, and that's really powerful for them to be able to do that. So it's been the starting point for us in that way, and I think that's very powerful to us, and I think it was quite powerful to themselves as well.
Yeah, very much so, because I think once the initial clarity is gained, then people can follow that, because it's a path, isn't it, to their own eventual resolution. But if people can, I suppose, what am I trying to get at here? If people can feel good about it in advance, because I think when we have a problem, or I do this certainly, I turn it over and over and over and over again, and it's almost like I'm using the wrong part of my mind to try and solve the problem. The answers aren't there. The answers aren't there. It seems to come almost from another part of the mind, which seems to be harder to access when we're going round and round and round and ruminating about a problem. Is that fair to say, do you think? I mean, it's a bit psychological, but I don't know. What do you think?
I see exactly what you mean, but I think part of the issue is you've got somebody there that's silent for a while, and you've got that person to bounce off these issues, and so someone's there to assist and support your thoughts coming out. Whereas when you're by yourself and you mull things over, it's exactly as you've said, from that point of view.
And people can get very, very overwhelmed with certain things. And I think when we feel overwhelmed and panicky, things seem a lot bigger and more urgent, certainly, than they possibly are. Yes, there are some things that are a genuine emergency, but not everything. I mean, we all know people that run their whole life as if everything's an emergency, and that isn't entirely accurate either. I think emergencies happen; they do happen, but it's a lot less, I think, than our panicking minds would have us believe. Would you agree with that?
I think you're quite right. Visualize anything in any shape or form, but we'll talk about it, and you might think, or as if you look at it, if you've got if your life is okay, and you're on what might say, let's use a term of phrase, the straight and narrow, you can look at other people's problems in a different light. So you light see a way forward.
You can.
Whereas I've got to say, and
Craig, I'm so sorry. There is such a terrible delay here. I'm going
I'm
to
not sure if I
try
heard.
and do something. I'm going to take you off for a second, Craig, if you don't mind. Can you just bear with me? I'm going to see if I can do something about this internet. I'm a bit limited on what I can do, but bear with me if you will. Right, I'm sorry about this, everyone. And I'm also going to take myself off just for a couple of seconds. Okay, sorry about that. I have done what I can. Let's see if that's any better. Here he comes. Are you sporting a Christmas jumper there, sir? Can you
Yeah.
hear me any better?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
I can hear you, but just a straightforward, nice woolly jumper, but it is a bit better. There is still a delay, but it seems as if it's a bit better.
Now, where did we get to?
Your end.
Do you think, in your experience, once people are
We got to the fact that somebody else who
somebody
say again about what you said, Neil, because
along the lines of if we all once people are
you
in,
asked me a question about did I feel something?
I okay, but where I was going is, I mean, we live in a very, very judgmental society. We also live in a society that tends to criminalize an awful lot and condemn an awful lot. And we also judge ourselves very deeply as well. So this notion of non-judgment is almost quite a radical idea. But the fact is, no healing and resolution, in my opinion, can be done in an atmosphere of judgment. In judgment, at best, it's going to be adversarial, like the court system, you know. And this is not about that. This is a totally different mindset. And I was going to pose the question that once someone is in that womb, if you like, of non-judgment, does that allow them to gain greater clarity and apply better problem-solving skills than they might have had previously? I think that's where I was going with that.
I got some of that, Neil. I got some of that. The whole issue about being non-judgmental is, look, everybody's human. Everybody has had issues in their life, and sometimes it's very difficult for those people to get those problems in their life that they perhaps regret and to get across to somebody. But I don't believe you're being very supportive if you sort of say, oh gosh, you shouldn't have done that. In their lives that they're not very proud of,
Mm.
perhaps a solution to it. And therefore, by getting it off their chest, they start the ball rolling. And this would be for lots of different things in life. We know that close to home, they don't want to upset their family, they don't want to embarrass their family. And that bit about talking to somebody that you don't know, you might never see again, you don't have to see again, is key to people opening up their issues in their life that they perhaps haven't discussed before. But we certainly laid down the gauntlet and said, no, we're not going to be judgmental. People can come to us, and we found a lot of success in that.
As I say, for our listeners and for you as well, Craig, I'm so sorry about the connection. Dave Sleet says, greetings one and all, dropping in to say hi. I'm in the studio putting together promotional videos for my next book. We'll catch up on the replay. Wishing you all a great week. I hope that recording session goes well, Dave. Neil, I absolutely agree. This is Asa Don Brown, Craig, who's very senior in the USA and Canadian mental health system. I've always described myself as the tech and the patient, the computer with all the software. The patient can utilize my knowledge to move their own life forward. Nice analogy. There are so many mental health issues that are criminalized and demonized. Not only mental health issues, just really anything. It's a crime to be fat. It's a crime to have red hair. Virtually, and it's not a healthy. It's not an environment that promotes mental health. For God's sake, how could it be? If people are constantly in a damage limitation mode of what other people think of us because we're so frightened of being judged. How on earth in anyone's imagination could that be conducive to mental health? It simply can't. It just isn't. I mean, religious people talk about a judgment day. I think we should have non-judgment day personally. That'd be close to heaven on earth, but that's just my opinion. What we got here? Asa Don Brown. Example. It's estimated that 21% of homeless have mental health concerns. Yeah, I can believe that. Over to you, Craig.
Agree, Neil. It's one of those things, and that bit about non-judgmental was very important to us. You mentioned homeless, but you see, what started the ball rolling for them? It could easily have been, and I suspect a large part of it, was that people suffered problems living with their family or other people, and therefore they decided to take themselves to the streets. That might be because they were away and they were on their own. Who knows? But a lot of people, I would suggest, who are homeless, had big issues in their life, and that's why they became homeless.
I think there's a rather cruel meme going around. Some people go, "Oh, well, they chose it for themselves," which is unhelpful at best. But why do you think people would become? What do you suppose the most common reason for people becoming homeless? I missed some of that. Is it because they could no longer live in the environment they were in, and they thought just anywhere is going to be better than this, or what?
No, I think you're right. Yes, they couldn't live with certain people. Maybe it was family. I think finance comes into a lot of being homeless. Sometimes people unintentionally make themselves homeless because there is no option for them as to do anything. They get a certain sense of achievement in terms of they're in control of their own life, even though they're in control of not very much to begin with. When you do to take yourself up to become homeless, so it's sometimes not of their own fault. Sometimes arguments start and they become distressed and unhappy about that. Therefore, they feel they're better off living on their own, even if it's in the back of a car or on the street somewhere in a doorway.
What would you like to see?
Homeless.
What safety nets? I mean, we've got the safety net of the welfare system, but what psychological safety nets would you like to see in place in society? So, to use your phrase, when whatever started the ball rolling, it could be stopped sooner before it gains momentum and gets out of control.
Yeah, I mean that is a bit of a solution. But it might be that perhaps as an additive to the council situation where someone will, I don't know whether they register themselves homeless, thing on the side of what councils do to look at the problems of why somebody has become homeless and whether there is anything that can be done from that point of view. There are these various hostels that people go along to on a daily basis, nightly basis, but there's not room for everybody. So I don't know whether it is something that the councils could take up. I suspect
Is money
no, something that somebody can
is
do.
is money the solution? Well, it obviously helps to have money rather than not having money, but is it the entire solution?
If you put people who, yeah, I don't know, if you put people who work for the council, who've got a job to do like that, it'll require some funding, and they will say, yeah, but that might be one less social worker, or somebody to do something else. So I think it's an important aspect, if particularly more so certain councils who have more homeless people. It should be, it is a problem. It's not a big subject that I've been able to look into in the past, but I think there is something there that people could look at. Why do people become homeless? To see if there is another way out for them, to find somewhere for them to live.
Yeah, I mean, I think what do all people want? People want to feel happy. People want to feel valued. People want to enjoy their lives. And these aren't terribly complicated things unless we make them complicated. And I'm thinking it can't be beyond the wit of man. Not that I'm saying I've got a solution, but to have these safety nets in place where people could go, organizations maybe such as yours, at least, maybe these people before that ball got rolling didn't have the non-judgmental environment, and they just thought, enough, I've had enough. And it went from there. Anything's got to be better than this. I don't know.
I think it's right, but I think also the public, the people that you know pay their taxes, and they should be non-judgmental about people's circumstances. It's certainly supposed to be confidential, so I don't see there being an issue with them starting off with looking at why someone becomes hopeless. The other thing to it is, of course, that a lot of people, and I do say this, see their problem as being a big issue for them, and therefore they've had trouble in the past. Why is it that someone should want to help me now? I don't want somebody meddling in my business. So people actually turn down help with
Oh,
these issues.
now you've hit on something here, because I think some people are very, very proud, and I think, and there's nothing wrong with that as such. But when people are so proud that they won't receive any kind of help, if they think they've got to do it all themselves, not receive any help of anyone or or anything, I think everyone needs some help at some point in their life. I know I have, but equally you don't want it. It's a balance, isn't it? Because if it goes too far the other way, you'll just create an awful lot of dependency, which I think a lot of people have now. People are dependent on people in relationships. People are dependent on the government for certain things rather than things maybe they could do for themselves. So it's a funny old balance, isn't it? What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right, Neil. It is a funny old balance. The other thing is the government, central government, is not seen as a good statistic. That our Western countries, such as ourselves, have got a lot of homeless, and there's homeless everywhere. But they don't like it, UK. So they do want to do something about it, but it gets devolved very quickly. It's not something that central government can necessarily do something about, because it gets watered down to the local councils to actually have things in place. Um, and of course, money's very tight today in councils. One understands that. So there's prioritization that goes into it. Services, refuse services and all those sort of things, children, social services,
Yeah,
education, they're all important things. And I think that they're perhaps a little bit.
a little bit what?
Sorry, you say that again.
You said you think they're perhaps a little bit.
I think they're reluctant to start something without having a directive from central
Oh, I see what
government.
you mean.
There's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much of a void between the central government saying
Yeah.
we must do something about the homeless, but actually nothing comes up. But it's local government there.
Craig, I'm going to thank you ever so much for being on. This delay is awful. It's like crawling through treacle to try and to do this, and that's no fault of your own. I'm so sorry about the delay. Good luck with everything you do in the future, my friend, and congratulations on everything you did with Just Talk. I thought that was a brilliant thing that you did. So congratulations. What are your future plans? Anything in the same sort of field as you move on?
No, not this moment, Neil. I've been down here only literally a couple of 3 weeks, so I've yet to find out what we'll look at the other side of internet.
Right. Well, keep in touch. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much for inviting me.
And no,
back
thank
again.
you. And if you do anything where we can be of support to you,
Yeah.
just let us know and we'll get you back on straight away and we'll have a chat. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Do you know, I counted that delay. That was an 8-second delay. That is an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Still, what can we do? 8-second delay. How are you guys? Morning, says Elizabeth. We got half an hour. So any of your comment. First of all, can you hear me all right? Do we have a delay? There was certainly a problem with hearing Craig. But folks, if you're listening to me, can you hear me all right? Just pop a yes in the chat box if you can. I'm waiting. What would you like to talk about? I want to talk about burnout, actually. But I was reading a bit of a book on it this morning. Yes, you can. I had a bit of a burnout experience. When was that? 21, 22. I can't really remember. It's all a bit of a blur. But and I thought it's all gone. But unfortunately, the last couple of days, I'm starting to get those feelings again. And has anyone else experienced burnout? And what did you do about it? There's a really good book which I've got over the other side of the room, so I might dash and get it. So if you can bear with me, dear listener, for 2 seconds, I'm taking myself off, and I'll be right back. Talk amongst. Yeah, so burnout is it's a relatively modern diagnosis, actually, but there's a lot of people and they've done quite a lot of research into it. What does Asa Don Brown say? Burnout is an extremely important topic. Also says, I've heard Craig in the past, he has something of substance. Very much so. Yeah, he is a man of substance. Yeah, burnout, it's I'm a bit like it today. If I'm not my normal self, if you think, oh, Neil's a bit all over the place, you're right. I am. But if we're talking about mental health, I might as well be honest. I've got a list of loads of things to do, but I can't be bothered to do any of it. Even something small like making a cup of tea would seem like climbing a mountain. Where normally I'd be buzzing around doing things, talking to people, taking care of myself, and suddenly it doesn't. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Really, Graham, we're trying to have a serious conversation here. Kimmy says the time of year always seems to create stress and anxiety, even if it's places and see people. And also, It's not post-holiday blues. I know what that feels like, and it's not that. It's not that, definitely. No, it's a feeling that I feel in my body. The body kind of goes nah, as if to say no, no more, enough, stop, slow down. And I came home from work from Radio Jackie today, and literally I just went on the sofa and fell asleep for an hour listening to a meditation. And then woke up, put the meditation back to the beginning and started again. And I've got this list of stuff to do today, and I just can't be bothered. And it isn't laziness, because I want to be enthusiastic. I want to enjoy what I'm doing, but I can't seem to get it. It's kind of lost my mojo a bit. Asa Don Brown, what do you think about this? Do you treat burnout? And if so, what's the treatment for it? I have a little look at the book that I was reading on it this morning. Which it is, and the other thing is the smallest thing could trigger you. Normally, I mean, come on, we've lived on planet Earth for a while, we're bombarded with bad news daily and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes the tiniest, smallest thing can just trigger you, and I won't say take you over the edge, but I guess it's catching it before it gains momentum. But I think we've got this bit of a belief in our society. No, keep going, work even harder, that kind of thing. Is there any harm doing nothing for a day? No, Kimmy, there's not, but you would think there was. And people that have got these driven personalities, they literally find it hard to do nothing. To sit down even for 5 minutes in a chair and do nothing at all, they would find impossible. And when the body slows, it's like the mind, it's weird. It kind of speeds up but slows down. I don't know if I'm articulating this right. Please back me up or not here, Asa Don Brown. You're the professional in the midst. If I'm, not representing this right, please tell me. But it's as if the body slows down and the mind speeds up. So the body don't want to do much, and the mind races but doesn't get anywhere. But equally, it feels a bit slower as well. It kind of goes fast and slow at the same time. It's really hard to describe. For example, my mind's racing about what I've got to do. Body is screaming, no, don't do it, slow down. And then I forgot my PIN number when I put my card in the machine this morning. I've never, ever forgotten my PIN number, ever. I just don't do that. I mean, it came to me eventually, and I looked at the guy, and it's an incorrect number. And I'm like, I forgot my PIN number. That's really weird. And then it kind of bounced through or sort of, slinked, slithered very slowly to the front of my brain, and I got it. So what's your thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on this? Because that's the symptoms as I've described it. Let's see what Asa Don Brown says. I've worked with burnout and I've experienced in the past. There's a number of modalities to work with burnout, but the most important thing one can do is self-care. Yeah, that's the one. Self-care. Self-care? What, caring for myself? Don't be ridiculous. And that's the attitude, isn't it? But I've got to, otherwise if I don't, because let's just address this whole selfish thing, because people suddenly think, it's selfish to care for yourself. And no, it bloody well isn't, because if I don't care for myself, someone else is going to have to care for me, and they don't need that. So it could be arguably very unselfish to care for myself, so it doesn't put the burden on someone else. Graham says, what's your PIN number so we can help you out next time? It's you can find it on the website, getstuff.com, Graham. Paul Claridge, Neil, this may sound odd, but I can see in your face and eyes that you're not feeling your normal self. Thank you. You look tired. Time to take a step back and care for yourself and give yourself time. Thank you, Paul. You can't help others if you're physically and mentally tired. That's interesting. If you can see that, Paul, I know I certainly feel it. I get a bit kind of dead eyes, a bit sort of vacant in the eyes. It's not me. It's not me at my best, most certainly. Kimmy says, people seem to have so much on their minds before a big day. Maybe take some time to empty your mind. Well, that's an interesting one, Kimmy, but how would you do that? How would you empty your mind? Having a mind means you think. It's as simple as that. Minds think. It like noses breathe, on having a mind. If you have a mind, you're going to think. And I think some people, when they try meditation, they think, I'm going to try and empty my mind. And it's absolutely hopeless. They can't. But accepting that minds think and observing the thoughts that go in your mind, I think that is closer to actual meditation. So you're becoming the observer, the witness to what's going on, rather than trying to stop what's going on, if that makes sense. I think that's quite a good way of saying it. What kind of modalities would you work with, Asa, Don Brown, for burnout? And question to everyone tuned in: what do you do for self-care when you start to feel really knackered and you go, right, I've got to stop? Take that superhero motif off your chest. And what would you do? Kimmy says, listen to music, watch a mindless film or comedy, or just have a lay down or walk in the garden. And this is the reassuring thing, because it doesn't have to be big things. It doesn't have to be difficult things, does it? It doesn't have to be complicated things. And sometimes mindless films can be really, really helpful. Sometimes if your mind's been dealing with an awful lot of complicated stuff, watching something completely mindless, late night trash TV, can be really, really helpful. Paul, I agree. When we're aware of others' challenges, we're often aware of our own. Just going back to see what Paul has said. Yeah. You can't help others if you're mentally and physically tired. No. To be able to be of value to anyone, you have to be at your best, so you can give your best. And we can be at our best by taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves what we need, even though it might seem alien to some of us. Certainly it has for me. I was just like, go, 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 non-stop, non-stop, non-stop. And the indicators were there. I remember years ago, I would just fall asleep during the day. I'd go out for a day and end up falling asleep, which really annoyed the people I was with. And that's gone on for years. And I still do that to this day. And I don't do it to be rude. I mean, I get up early to do a breakfast show, so my body clock is all over the place, but all the same. Shouldn't really be falling asleep. But what did I do? I'd wake up and then carry on, go, 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 do more. I mean, it's a bit of a dumb thing to do, really. But then eventually, when I was going through, when my mum was unwell, that's when the burnout really hit. Because it was a virtually impossible situation, and I just did not know what to do. No one knew what to do. There were no answers. It's one of those things. And with a racing mind, but when it's constantly futile, and no matter how much you race, you can't find an answer. Perhaps there isn't an effective answer, or maybe not one at that moment. Anyway, Kimmy, well done for doing this hour for us. It's appreciated. So now take a moment to meditate. I won't meditate live on air. I don't think Russ would thank me for omming live and becoming one with all things on air. But I appreciate your thoughts, and you're very welcome. Anything you'd like to talk about? Anything at all you'd like to talk about today? Any Christmas shout outs we can do? Oh, we got a smile out of you. Any Christmas shout outs we can do for you today? Because it's frighteningly near Christmas as well, isn't it? Well, I say frighteningly. I still haven't put my decorations up. But that's another thing to do. And that's another thing. Sometimes our self-care activities, it can always be added to the to-do list. Right, I've got to have a walk in the garden. I've got to take my supplement. I've got to meditate. And it's on that do list, isn't it? Where maybe it needs to be more kind of being, not doing, which is why I guess maybe we're called human beings rather than human doings. Let's not be a doer, let's do a beer, so they say, which I quite like, which would be quite a nice idea, but not too much. Kimmy, it's your birthday tomorrow. Do you get joint Christmas and birthday presents? I bet you do. Well, I hope you don't. Kimmy, a very, very happy birthday to you. What are you doing to celebrate, Kimmy? Anything good? Are you going out? Are you being spoiled? Have you got people to take you out and spoil you? Some advice from people for Christmas. Well, Graham, yeah. Should I get my wife a new set of pots and pans or an air fryer? There was a statistic, Graham, this morning saying a vast majority of men think that women over-exaggerate the stress of Christmas, and you can tell which ones they are because they're normally in A&E having a turkey removed from their backside. I'll have another laugh emoji for that one, please. Well, thank you all very much indeed for tuning in. We've got about another 15 minutes to do. I'm going to look at this chapter in the book. How can I relax and look after myself properly? And I'm going to share a little bit of this. Hate it. Meals out with family tomorrow evening, but with revelers in Xmas hats. Oh, yeah, sorry. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is one modality that's utilized for burnout. I've asked my patients to consider taking walks in quiet areas, meditation, breathing, journaling, and having something that you can rely on and have healthy conversations. Yeah, all these things are really good. I mean, I haven't looked into it deeply, but I know there's a lot of power in breath work, a lot of power in breath work. You know, simple things, as simple as breathing, but a lot of us kind of breathe. Obviously, you can see it from our shoulders like this, where it should be breathing, diaphragmatically. I think any singer would tell you that. But when we get stressed, we go into that, shoulder breathing. Absolutely. So it is simple things. When we're working so hard, I read from the book, to keep going and ignoring the physical signals of impending burnout, we can reach the stage of becoming physically ill. We may need to go to our doctor and get advice about our health. We need to be aware that how we feel physically connects us with our sense of well-being, affecting our emotions, mood, energy levels, and motivation. I'm just going to flip through this chapter. They've done an interview with the real case study, which I won't share, but they're using the name Margaret here, and it says her recovery involved her trying to regain healthy habits of diet and exercise and relaxation. But if you do feel unwell, obviously go see a doctor and take any medications that you might need. I'm certainly not, and wouldn't attempt to give out medical advice here. I'm not a doctor and I wouldn't claim to be. Diet, food should be a joy, of course, and nutrition. And of course, building blocks of nutrition. So it's good to make sure we have a sensible and varied diet. Our bodies need regular, healthy, and varied meals of wholesome food. Recent survey, or recent when this book was written, which is not really too many years ago, revealed that millions of young professionals only cook once a week and live on quick fix meals, which can't be good. 8 out of 10 say they will cook more often if they arrived home from work at a decent time. When we're under pressure, so says the book, we may only find time to eat junk food and find ourselves dependent on large amounts of nicotine or caffeine to get us going in the morning, and large volumes of alcohol or big drug of choice to relax us in the evening. And people do that. It's not a moral failing, by the way, but it's just simple, isn't it? It's just simple and quick, go for a drink. But the problem is you then wake up the next morning feeling like you've been run over by a truck and the problems are still there. Fitness and exercise, good to have a medical checkup and set some attainable goals, they say. A few ideas: walking, jogging, gardening, vacuuming. Who writes this nonsense? Team sport, I think of Mrs. Doubtfire with the Hoover. Team sport, swimming, dancing, going to the gym, Pilates, yoga. There's a lot. A lot of people talk about going out in nature, and it can be very restorative to be in touch with natural things. Many rehabilitative centres, I'm still reading from the book, I'll let you know what the title is in a minute, for people recovering from addictions are working with the land or with animals as a means of recuperation and readjustment. People's lives have become more urban, it's true, and long days are spent working indoors in cities or towns, meaning we rarely see or notice anything natural. I remember when I used to be a sales rep and sell vending machines, and part of my area was down on the south coast. It was like Littlehampton and Worthing and places like that. And I go to the people on the industrial estates, which are the most depressing places in the world, aren't they? And I'd say, oh, it's so nice to be near the beach. And they go, the beach? Beach? I've never been. I'm like, I thought that's ridiculous. And then I thought, hang on a minute. But I live 12 miles out of London. How often have I been to London as a tourist? And the answer is no, so I can hardly judge them, can I? Aston Brandt's been willing to turn to others and letting go of our need for control. Because we can't really control anything. All we can really control is ourselves. It's ourselves that we should be managing and working to control. If you're trying to control the world outside of you, then it's just a never-ending sea of moving parts and never succeed. Nutrition is critically important. When someone's experiencing burnout, they ought to have a dental, physical, and mental health exam to rule out any underlying conditions. Back to nurturing things that can be done. Wildlife centres, growing indoor plants, tending a garden, taking up horse riding. I did that once and fell on my arse. I was out riding with my girlfriend at the time, and we Concord. It was in Concord time, and Concord flew over, and it made that, and nothing. Horse absolutely ignored it. But then we went past a place where people were spot welding, and that spooked the horse, and I landed on my bum, which hurt. Paul Claridge, one of the best self-care tools is having the ability or will to say no. As much as we may want to help others, doing extra hours at work, saying no when you feel exhausted physically or mentally is important. And remember, a favour done too often becomes an expectation. Yeah, doesn't it just? Liz, dear friend of mine, says talking is important, even if it starts as innocent conversation about the weather. Human interaction all helps. It does. It very much does. It very much does. It's also getting one's arse in gear to actually do those good things. Stop. Talk slowly. Breathe. There you go, Kim. Just for you there. Going back to this book, it could be a sport or an outdoor pursuits. Oh, we got onto the bit about sex. There you go. If you just tuned in, you tuned in at the right time. And basically, they're saying that it can adversely affect your sex life, your love life, if you're stressed. Particularly, I would imagine if you approach sex as a goal-orientated thing rather than experience. I would imagine. I know deeply after years of experience of doing it properly. I mean, obviously, can't believe I just said that on air. Now, this is interesting. They're talking about creativity here as well. Now, this is interesting. Creativity, people might go, oh, I'm not creative. And I hear many people say that. And I say, rubbish, they are. And it doesn't have to be about art. You can be creative in how you parent your children. You can be creative in how you dig the garden. You can be creative in your thinking, But doing some sort of expression of creativity is better than just repeating the same behaviors on rote again and again and again and again. Get up, get out, earn money, go to work, back home, boom. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. That's the problem. I think also a stifling of creativity can lead to problems. I remember when I was really young and I was doing some writing, and with true creativity, it's almost like it happens through you. It's hard to describe. It's connected to flow states as well, which I talk about a lot on this show. But it's almost like you're doing it, but you're not doing it. And it's like it kind of happens through you. And I could sense these words coming to me, through me, and there was a joy, absolute joy in getting them down on the page. And obviously anything that brings you a sense of joy is a really good thing to do. Liz says creative sex. We'll let that one slide. Thank you, Liz. I won't ask you to expand. So it's all about self-care, rediscovering creativity they're talking about. And that could be painting and the fine arts, craft work, sewing, tapestry, sculpture, pottery, textile work, music, acting, watching theatre. I've done a bit of that actually, and that is fun. DIY, which I'm terrible at, organising team sports and sailing, dancing, horse riding, archery. And what they've suggested you do in the book is go through the list and see if anything jumps out at you. Liz, will you stop that already? Aisodon Brown, we found the arts play a significant role in improving one's mindset. It's an important ingredient in managing various dementias as well. Now that's interesting. I mean, obviously there's no cure for dementia as yet, much there's a lot of research going on. But when you say managing, does that mean it can be slowed down by, because I remember when my mum was unwell and she refused to do anything that would help her, literally anything. And I'm like, use it or lose it, use it or lose it, use it or lose it, which is an old motif, isn't it? But unfortunately, it was sadly true. So someone called Heather found walking and going to rugby matches really therapeutic. Yeah, maybe just going to a rugby or a football match and shouting at the referee. That could be quite cathartic. John was encouraged to buy a season ticket and attend rugby matches at weekends. Here we go. He found shouting for his team every week very cathartic as a way of reducing stress. Yes, there are dementia choirs forming and dancing too. Goodness me. Yeah, singing, very good for you, Kimmy. Very good for you singing to an upbeat song. Get a hairbrush for a microphone and sing like nobody is watching. Julia Cameron, is mentioned in this book, and I've heard of her. She wrote a book on creativity called The Artist's Way. She used to be married to Martin Scorsese, the filmmaker, many years ago, and she encourages people to discover their innate creativity. She calls her the savage inner critic, because we've all got that. And I find if I get a bit burnouty, then all those inner critical voices, they come screaming up to the surface, and they're really loud and they're really quite hard to ignore. And yet you have to, because they're never telling you the truth. They never say anything good. Has anyone got a friend, or perhaps an ex-friend, who just completely moaned and pissed and moaned about everything and saw the negative in everything, would tear everything down, everyone down? It's kind of like that, but going on in your own head. It's not good. But Julia Cameron, worth reading the book The Artist's Way, by the way. Even if you're not an artist, don't be fooled by the title. It's a really good book on, well, now in hindsight, I could say it's a good book on mental health. Workaholism is an addiction, and like all addictions, it blocks creative energy. That's interesting, isn't it? Play can make the workaholic nervous. Fun is scary. In order to recover our creativity, we must learn to see workaholism as a block instead of a building block. Work abuse. Have you ever heard that term before? Work abuse. But what a great term. It creates in our artist a Cinderella complex. We're always dreaming of the ball and always experiencing the ball and change. She's a clever writer. Let's just break that down for a minute. Excuse me. For a start, any addiction blocks creative energy. Okay, and creative energy, I guess many people in the universe would tell you that's what we're made of, and we certainly don't want to be blocked from it. So there's people that are scared to have fun, and they think, I'll just work harder. I mean, I've heard the term workaholism, but never heard the term work abuse before. And maybe it's a strong term, but maybe for all I know. I mean, I'm not saying lay on the sofa and do nothing. I'm not saying be a lazy layabout. Far from it. But it's got to be in balance. Work-life, yeah, that phrase. Anyone remember that one? Work-life balance. Is it possible to abuse work? I suppose so. Anything that ends in alcoholism, I suppose it could be abused, couldn't it? I get abuse at work. Problem is, I work with my wife. You live on dangerous ground, Grandpack. You live on dangerous ground. It's similar to workaholic. Yeah, I would say, I agree, Liz. I would say it's a workaholic gone mega extreme. Long one from Paul. A week before last, I did a first aid refresher course. As part of the course, we discussed mental health issues and some simple techniques to help a colleague. Little did I realise that I have to put those skills to the test for real last week when a colleague suddenly became very unwell while he were on shift together. Oh my goodness. And he attempted to self-harm and has slashed his wrist. As it was just he and I in the shop, I closed the shop, gave him first aid and sat talking with him. ... We'd love to hear the outcome of that. I'm sure it's a good one and well done. I mean, how would you deal with something like that? But again, like we were talking with Craig about earlier in the show, it's just giving someone a judgment-free space to be able to talk. It's generally a cry for attention, so they say. It's honestly being about being present and living at that moment. Yes, the famous now, isn't it, Asa Don Brown? The famous now. Any teacher of mindfulness will tell you that if you go into the past, you'll get stuck in guilt. And if you go into the future, you'll get stuck in what ifing about the future. And again, all these things can be taken to an experience. I mean, there's some things in my past which I think are wonderful, and I'll happily talk about them, things that make me laugh and great memories and catching up with friends. Do you remember that? Oh my God, that was fun, and all that sort of thing. That's a joyful thing. But none of this should be taken to an extreme. And of course, we need to make some plans. I need to plan what I'm going to do a bit for the day, but trying to plan everything to the nth degree when there's things that you can't control, or certainly thinking fearfully about the future, stops you being in the present moment and noticing what's here now. Perhaps there is a lot more here now to be grateful for than most of us would give credit for. Perhaps. I'm going to take a break. I'm actually going to take a break now. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. Russ and I will be back on Wednesday, and I really look forward to seeing you. My employers have been brilliant getting my colleague the help he needs and checking up on me to make sure I'm okay. And you've raised a really good point there, Paul, because you did something wonderful for that person, but you need the care too. carers need care too. And I bet if you hadn't been feeling full or had that first aid refresher, if your tank wasn't full, you would have had very little to give that person anyway. So he can thank his lucky stars that perhaps you were taking care of yourself. It's a good thing. You've perked up. Well done. Thank you, Kimmy. Thank you. It's been good talking to you. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you very much indeed. Russ and I are going to be back on Wednesday. Thank you once again to my wonderful guest for the second time on the show, Craig Marriott, at the start of the show, former owner and creator of Just Talk, moving on to bigger and better things. And it was previously providing a fantastic area service in the local community. That's it from me, though. Thank you very much. And we'll see you Wednesday. And for goodness sake, take great care of yourself and each other, but yourself first. All the best. Good afternoon.